Further questions, confusions, and crazy time travel stuff to come. Eden Zero is finishing up a pretty big arc, but opening up with some good questions. And from what I've seen for the title of the next chapter, we are going to be getting one of the mysteries laid out a while ago finally answered. So the chapter, obviously, like where we left off in '98, like Shiki had obtained this new form, had kind of like been pushed into this state, and now like he just ran a hammer on Draken Joe in his big monster form. He has completely decimated him, and now Draken Joe is defeated, and he quickly starts aging. He doesn't have the access to his life force to keep him young, and the dude just starts slowly going further and further down this like pathway to just being some decrepit old man. Wise, seeing the opportunity, has a gun, gets up, and goes to get ready to shoot him and take him out. And I thought this was a very good moment for both their characters. Like, Wise obviously wants revenge for the guy who killed his mom, and on top of that, the other people have died because of Draken Joe's want to keep living. Even if it stemmed originally from somewhere that was more like from a good place. At some point he himself wanted to live, and he wanted to like live a full life and make friends and do all, just have a nice experience. And at some point along the way, it just got lost. I'm hoping we find out more about that journey of his, like through time travel and stuff, and we can figure out more of Draken Joe at some point. Maybe we meet a younger version of himself that can even join the Eden Zero crew, and get him like early enough that he doesn't end up going down this darker path. I think that'd be really cool, like befriending certain villains throughout the series through get meeting them at the point where their life to maybe like turns dark, and maybe eventually you can have somebody that no matter what it was going to go evil, like somebody who was just always destined to go bad. I think that would actually be a really cool end villain for Eden Zero. Like Ravemaster had Lucia, who was trying to correct, he was trying to go back to what he thought was the truth, like the true world. Zareth was trying to. Obviously, Zareth wasn't the actual final villain because the series is still going, but you know what I mean? Zareth wanted to fix all of the wrongs that he did and like live a happy life for himself. And if you had like a character throughout a series, like maybe it's not just Draken Joe, we get a couple of characters that are like that at some point in their story, like things just started to get darker and they took a bad turn. It just got progressively worse and worse for them. And then you have somebody that's just destined to be evil, like either they're bad no matter what, like maybe they're just born bad, or maybe like an event will constantly keep triggering. Like no, like if you stop one event, kind of like Final Destination, you stop one event, but another one will just kind of occur. Like somebody that the universe has just decided has to be evil. I think that would actually be really cool, and it'd be a really interesting story for a villain. But like Wise goes to shoot him, and Shiki's trying to convince him not to do it. And while they're talking, he's like, "Listen, I like Wise talking like, could you be friends with somebody that killed somebody you love?" And Shiki's like, "Probably not right away." And he's like, so you think that you could eventually? And he's like, it might take time, but he's like, if anybody reaches out, I think it's possible to be friends with them. Like Shiki clearly, in comparison to again, it's something that I feel like can get a little tiresome, but it's nice to kind of compare the characters just because they're both in Hiromishima's works. When you have like Haru and Natsu, like Shiki definitely has more of like he's trying to help everybody he can that he sees is like willing to be saved by him, and he's somebody who's like, if I can and they'll allow it, I will do it, whatever it is that I need to. Whereas like Haru was more of just a hero on his journey, doing what he needed to get the job done, and Natsu's obviously more independent. It's guild first above all else. But Wise is just wanting to, put this dude down. He knows that he needs to do it in the back of his head to get revenge for his mom. But after that point, like he goes to shoot, but it's stopped when Draken Joe's hand comes out, and instead of it being like an ask for help, he's wanting life from them so he can keep living. But Wines, like after pulling the trigger, doesn't actually shoot him, just shoots near him, and like he just tosses the gun away. He doesn't want to kill him. He's worried about like, why can't I kill this guy? You have Sibber showing up, and like you understand how precious life is, and I think it's because of that like loss of his mom. Maybe he doesn't want to take life from other people. I'm curious to know like if Wise is just maybe like that's going to be his thing, is he just doesn't want to kill, and like if Shiki ends up going down like more of like a serious path, maybe doing something like that for him. I don't know. I'm very curious of where this portion of the story is going to go. And there was something at the end that made me think. And I'll talk about it when I get to like that portion because it has reference to do with something we saw earlier in the story. So at some point we have like you get like a mirror show up and she's like arrested again. Like characters are all coming back together. They just have some nice moments. I do like Shiki having a memory of like Rebecca and them crying, and he has like a similar moment to what he had before, where he's like, I'm not gonna make my friends cry again. But instead of it being more of like a serious, like kind of honed and vicious version, it was I mean, not even vicious, just like cold and ready to like annihilate his opponent. But more of just the sad boy Shiki. We know he's a little bit of a crybaby when it comes to stuff. So I don't know. I like after seeing that like much more dark and serious Shiki, we get more of just the nicer Shiki that the series obviously stemmed at first from for his character. I thought that was nice. But after that point, like everything's just kind of wrapping it up on the Beliogore. Characters are going back, and then they're on the Eden Zero. We see them kind of just like talking, what happened to Dragon Joe. Amir obviously took him, and they arrested him. They've been trying to do that with Gia and whatnot. And after that point, you have like Weiss. He's in his room and remembering like a conversation he had with Sibber, and Sibber ends up having the necklace to give to him that was his mom's. And he's just like that. So he did have it. It's not actually what went down. It was some like younger kind of member of their crew that took it, and then when he went to go give it back to him, because this at this point obviously it's split because the one that he talked to was after he got his arm cut off by Drac and Joe, and he's like saying like, I tried to give it back to you, but you didn't want it. And that version of Weiss, who's the old man version of Weiss, that obviously is the one that made the happy bot for Rebecca, is pretty much saying how he doesn't want it until he can forgive himself, because it reminds him of a time where he didn't trust one of his friends and turned on him. So it probably just, even though it's important to him in remembrance to his mother, it shows of like a time in his life where I imagine for him was like rock bottom, like just a point where he was just low on himself. And after that point, like, you get a nice conversation with him and Sibber. Sibber saying like, after that point, you got your act together, you went to school, you got like a really nice like position, and I think he said he got like a nice job, and just he just became a much better person. I don't know if he mentioned anything about a job. I just know that after that point, like it's where he becomes the version of Weiss that's obviously a big deal in this universe, which is really interesting to think about when you have this character who, even though he's like in the main cast and you have this old man version of him somewhere out in the universe, for him knowing that there's this big deal like scientist inventor somewhere, and it's actually like him of what he could become, is very intriguing when you think about it. But Sibber's just saying how like he was a little bit jealous of his his life as such a big deal, and he's like, well, I was proud though to call you my friend. You got some nice little character conversation and dialogue. I'm curious if Sibber is going to, like, what he's going to do in the story. Like, if he's going to stay on the Beliogore. I assume that that's probably the best option for him. Though he has the bar, I feel like they should have brought him onto Eden Zero just to be the bartender, and you could have had him just, have his own zone where he just kind of, like, keeps track of stuff and interacts with characters every now and again. But now he's got, like, this version of Weiss has the necklace back from his mom. And, he's just in a good mood there. You have Labilia, who I'm wondering, like, how long she's going to stick around. She's hanging out with Amora, and she's going around. And obviously this panel, you could tell who I was most intrigued with to see in this chapter is Jin is on the ship. And I am happy to see his character stick around. I've already mentioned before, I really like his character, and I really can't wait to see more of him. So that's going to be good just by default. Hyped to see more of his character. But at the end of the chapter, I think, is the more intriguing part. And it not only for what it's going to do, but also for, I think, in reference to something that we're going to see in the future. So, like, Rebecca's, when they're all talking about, like, oh, yeah, the characters did something. I actually thought if you go back and look at my video, like, back when they time traveled and they were getting the kind of, like, do-over against the Element 4 and stuff, I thought it was going to be, like, Captain Connor was going to be the one to, like, turn things over and, like, be the character to make the difference. and like maybe reveal he's actually powerful, but he wasn't around. And I didn't even think about like the fact we haven't seen him since a while ago, since they were captured. And when they're like talking about like the teamwork that all of them did and like all the parts everyone played, Rebecca mentions Connor, but no one seems to remember him but her. So obviously in this world, in world 30, in the 30 timeline, that they didn't pick up Captain Connor. So I mean, that by itself is like an interesting twist. But from the title, the next chapter, from what I read, it's Eden's One. So we're gonna find out about the whole Eden's One thing that he revealed, back after his introduction. But the thing I think is the most interesting about that is when you have like the character reactions, because Rebecca remembers fully. We know there's a way for like Shiki and them to remember, like with his gravity, but obviously that's not the case right now. But I'm wondering if, back when this arc started and Rebecca had that dream where she was talking to Shiki and she was talking about Happy Bot, and he's like, what would a dead cat do in this scenario? I'm wondering if in that timeline that she, and like maybe that's something of the future, and she came back at that point, and we'll figure out like we'll see that timeline maybe eventually, but or at least those events of that timeline. If it's a time travel back, obviously that's a different timeline. But maybe at that point that because of time travel, they end up like making it so like she ends up making it so she never got the Happy Bot. So at the point where Shiki and Rebecca met, she wouldn't have it. Maybe she just had the guns, and the little robot that turns into Happy is not somebody that is part of the story. I'm very intrigued to figure out how that's all going to turn out. So, pretty actually fast review in terms of like my usual ones for Eden's. Usually it's a good couple extra minutes, but I think this was a pretty solid chapter, pretty quick to read, but more of the questions about what's to come up. And next we have chapter 100, which is going to be really cool. And I will say one thing. I know Hiramashima enough to know that he likes to do a lot of big reveals at like landmark numbers. Like, I mean, obviously, for instance, was it chapter 500 of Fairy Tail was when that was revealed of Natu being E&D to Gray. There's always 400, obviously, Ignil showing up at 400. Or there's always something at the 100s. Ignil showing up at 400, finding about Ethnologie at 300, finding out Zeref at 200. There's always something that shows up around the 100 marks. So we'll probably get some big, interesting reveals. Maybe we'll find out like where the Eden Zero ship comes from, and maybe even find out about like Ziggy. Maybe Eden's One is actually like from the future or something, and like the Eden Zero ship is like a big deal in his timeline, and somehow he came back and done a bunch of stuff. Who knows? Either way, check out. I'm trying to skip things. Anyway, comment below. Thumbs up the video from the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed. And thank you all for listening. Bye.